Zheng He, Chinese, 1371 to 1433 or 1435, was a Chinese mariner, explorer, diplomat, fleet admiral, and court eunuch during China's early Ming dynasty. He was originally born as Ma He in a Muslim family, and later adopted the conferred surname Zheng from Emperor Yongle. Zheng commanded expeditionary treasure voyages to Southeast Asia, South Asia, Western Asia, and East Africa from 1405 to 1433. His larger ships allegedly carried hundreds of sailors on 4 tiers of decks and may have stretched 120 meters or more in length, but these claims have been disputed. As a favorite of the Yongle Emperor, whose usurpation he assisted, Zheng rose to the top of the imperial hierarchy and served as commander of the southern capital Nanjing. The capital was later moved to Beijing by the Yongle Emperor. His voyages were long neglected in official Chinese histories but have become well known in China and abroad since the publication of Liang Quichao's biography of our homeland's great navigator, Zheng He in 1904. A trilingual stele left by the navigator was discovered on the island of Ceylon shortly thereafter. Early life and family. Zheng He was born Ma He, to a Muslim family of Kunyang, Kunming, Yunnan, China. He had an older brother and 4 sisters. Zheng He's religious beliefs became all-embracing and eclectic in his adulthood. The Liu Jiagong and Shangle inscriptions suggest that Zheng He's devotion to Tianfei, the patron goddess of sailors and seafarers, was the dominant faith to which he adhered, reflecting the goddess' central role to the treasure fleet. John Guy mentions, when Zheng He, the Muslim eunuch leader of the great expeditions to the Western Ocean, Indian Ocean, in the early 15th century, embarked on his voyages, it was from the divine woman that he sought protection, as well as at the tombs of the Muslim saints on Lengshan Hill, above the city of Quanzhou. Zheng He was a great-great-great-grandson of Syed Aijul Shams al-Din Omar, who served in the administration of the Mongol Empire and was the governor of Yunnan during the early Yuan dynasty. His great-grandfather was named Bayan and may have been stationed at a Mongol garrison in Yunnan. Zheng He's grandfather carried the title Haji, while his father had the Sinicized surname Ma and also the title Haji, which suggests that they had made the pilgrimage to Mecca. In the autumn of 1381, a Ming army invaded and conquered Yunnan, which was then ruled by the Mongol prince Basala Warmi, Prince of Liang. In 1381, Ma Haji, Zheng He's father, died in the fighting between the Ming armies and Mongol forces. Dreyer, 2007, p. 12, states that Zheng He's father died at age 39 while resisting the Ming conquest, while Levathis, 1996, p. 62. States Zheng He's father died at age 37, but it is unclear if he was helping the Mongol army or just caught in the onslaught of battle. When Meng, the oldest son, buried their father outside of Kunming. In his capacity as admiral, Zheng He had an epitaph engraved in honor of his father, composed by the Minister of Rites Li Zhigang on the Duanwu festival of the 3rd year in the Yongle era, June 1, 1405. Capture, castration and service. Zheng He was captured by the Ming armies at Yunnan in 1381. General Fu Yud saw Ma He on the road and approached him in order to inquire about the location of the Mongol pretender. Ma He responded defiantly by saying that the Mongol pretender had jumped into a lake. Afterwards, the general took him prisoner. One source states that he was castrated at the age of 10 and then was placed in the service of the Prince of Yan, while another source indicates that the castration occurred in 1385. Ma He was sent to serve in the household of Judi, the Prince of Yan, who later became the Yongle Emperor. Judi was 11 years older than Ma. While enslaved as a eunuch servant, Ma He eventually gained the confidence of Judi, while Judi as his benefactor would gain the allegiance and loyalty of the young eunuch. Since 1380, the prince had been governing Biping, later Beijing, which was located near the northern frontier where the hostile Mongol tribes were situated. Ma would spend his early life as a soldier on the northern frontier. He often participated in Judi's military campaigns against the Mongols. On March 2, 1390, Ma accompanied the prince when he commanded his first expedition, which was a great victory as the Mongol commander Nagasha surrendered as soon as he realized he had fallen for a deception. Eventually, he gained the confidence and trust of the prince. Ma was also known as Sanbao during his service in the household of the Prince of Yan. This name was a reference to the Buddhist 3 jewels, Sanbao, also known as Triratna. This name could also be written, Sanbao, literally 3 protections. Ma received a proper education while at Biping, which he would not have had if he had been placed in the imperial capital Nanjing, as the Hongwu emperor did not trust eunuchs and believed that it was better to keep them illiterate. Meanwhile, the Hongwu Emperor purged and exterminated many of the original Ming leadership and gave his involved sons more military authority, especially those in the north like the Prince of Yan. Adulthood and military career. Zheng He's appearance as an adult was recorded. He was 7 chi tall, had a waist that was 5 chi in circumference, cheeks and a forehead that was high, a small nose, glaring eyes, teeth that were white and well-shaped as shells, and a voice that was as loud as a bell. It is also recorded that he had great knowledge about warfare and was well accustomed to battle. The young eunuch eventually became a trusted advisor to the prince and assisted him when the Jianwen emperor's hostility to his uncle's feudal bases prompted the 1399–1402 Jingnan campaign, which ended with the emperor's apparent death and the ascension of the Judi, Prince of Yan, as the Yongle emperor. In 1393, the crown prince had died, thus the deceased prince's son became the new heir apparent. By the time the emperor died, June 24, 1398, the Prince of Qin and the Prince of Jin had perished, which left Judi, the Prince of Yan, as the eldest surviving son of the emperor. However, Judi's nephew succeeded the imperial throne as the Jianwen emperor. In 1398, he issued a policy known as Xuefan, or reducing the feudatories, which entails eliminating all the princes by stripping their power and military forces. In August 1399, Judi openly rebelled against his nephew. In 1399, Mahi successfully defended Biping city reservoir Zhenglunba against the imperial armies. In January 1402, Judi began with his military campaign to capture the imperial capital Nanjing. Zheng He would be one of his commanders during this campaign. In 1402, Judi's armies defeated the imperial forces and marched into Nanjing on July 13, 1402. Judi accepted the elevation to emperor 4 days later. After ascending the throne as the Yongle emperor, Judi promoted Mahi as the Grand Director, Taijian, of the Directorate of Palace Servants. During the New Year's Day on February 11, 1404, the Yongle emperor conferred the surname Zheng to Mahi, because he had distinguished himself defending the city reservoir Zhenglunba against imperial forces in the siege of Biping of 1399. Another reason was that the eunuch commander also distinguished himself during the 1402 campaign to capture the capital Nanjing. In the new administration, Zheng He served in the highest posts, as Grand Director and later as Chief Envoy, Zhengxi, during his sea voyages. Over the next 3 decades he conducted 7 of these voyages on behalf of the emperor, trading and collecting tribute in the Eastern Pacific and Indian Oceans. In 1424, Admiral Zheng He traveled to Palembang in Sumatra to confer an official seal and letter of appointment upon Shi Jisun, who was placed in the office of Pacification Commissioner. The Taizongjilu February 27, 1424 entry reports that Shi Jisun had sent Chu Yancheng as envoy to petition the approval of the succession from his father Shi Jinqing, who was the Pacification Commissioner of Palembang, and was given permission from the Yongle Emperor. On September 7, 1424, Zhu Jiezi had inherited the throne as the Hongxi Emperor after the death of the Yongle Emperor on August 12, 1424. When Zheng He returned from Palembang, he found that the Yongle Emperor had died during his absence. On September 7, 1424, the Hongxi Emperor terminated the undertaking of further treasure voyages. On February 24, 1425, he appointed Admiral Zheng He as the defender of Nanjing and ordered him to continue his command over the treasure fleet for the city's defense. On March 25, 1428, the Zhuan Emperor ordered Zheng He and others to take over the supervision for the rebuilding and repair of the Great Beian Temple at Nanjing. He completed the construction of the temple in 1431. On May 15, 1426, the Zhuan Emperor ordered the Directorate of Ceremonial to send a letter to Zheng He to reprimand him for a transgression. Earlier, an official petitioned the emperor to reward workmen who had built temples in Nanjing. The Zhuan Emperor responded negatively to the official for placing the costs to the court instead of the monks themselves, but he realized that Zheng He and his associates had instigated the official. According to Dreyer, 2007, the nature of the emperor's words indicated that Zheng He's behavior in this situation was the last straw, but that there is too little information about what had transpired beforehand. Nevertheless, the Zhuan Emperor would eventually come to trust Zheng He. In 1430, the new Zhuan Emperor appointed Zheng He to command over a 7th and final expedition into the Western Ocean, Indian Ocean. In 1431, Zheng He was bestowed with the title Sanbao Taiyan, using his informal name Sanbao together with the title of Grand Director. Death. One theory is that Admiral Zheng He died in 1433. during or shortly after the seventh voyage. Another is that Zheng He continued to serve as the defender of Nanjing, dying in 1435. A tomb was built for Zheng He at the southern slope of Cattlehead Hill, Nanjing. The original tomb was a horseshoe-shaped grave. It is a cenotaph believed to contain his clothes and headgear. In 1985, the tomb was rebuilt following a Muslim-style expeditions. The Yuan dynasty and expanding Sino-Arab trade during the 14th century had gradually expanded Chinese knowledge of the world. Universal maps previously only displaying China and its surrounding seas began to expand further and further into the southwest with much more accurate depictions of the extent of Arabia and Africa. Between 1405 and 1433, the Ming government sponsored 7 naval expeditions. The Yongle Emperor, disregarding the Hongwu Emperor's expressed wishes, designed them to establish a Chinese presence and impose imperial control over the Indian Ocean trade, impress foreign peoples in the Indian Ocean basin, and extend the empire's tributary system. It has also been inferred from passages in the history of Ming that the initial voyages were launched as part of the emperor's attempt to capture his escaped predecessor, which would have made the first voyage the largest-scale manhunt on water in the history of China. Zheng He was placed as the admiral in control of the huge fleet and armed forces that undertook these expeditions. Wang Jinghong was appointed his second-in-command. Preparations were thorough and wide-ranging, including the use of such numerous linguists that a foreign language institute was established at Nanjing. Zheng He's first voyage departed July 11, 1405, from Suzhou: 203 and consisted of a fleet of 317 ships holding almost 28,000 crewmen. Zheng He's fleets visited Brunei, Java, Thailand, and Southeast Asia, India, the Horn of Africa, and Arabia, dispensing and receiving goods along the way. Zheng He presented gifts of gold, silver, porcelain, and silk. In return, China received such novelties as ostriches, zebras, camels, and ivory from the Swahili. 206 The giraffe he brought back from Malindi was considered to be a qilin and taken as proof of the favor of heaven upon the administration. While Zheng He's fleet was unprecedented, the routes were not. Zheng He's fleet was following long-established, well-mapped routes of trade between China and the Arabian Peninsula employed since at least the Han Dynasty. This fact, along with the use of a more than abundant number of crew members that were regular military personnel, leads some to speculate that these expeditions may have been geared at least partially at spreading China's power through expansion. During the Three Kingdoms period, the King of Wu sent a 20-year-long diplomatic mission led by Zhu Ying and Kang Tai along the coast of Asia, which reached as far as the Eastern Roman Empire. After centuries of disruption, the Song dynasty restored large-scale maritime trade from China in the South Pacific and Indian Oceans, reaching as far as the Arabian Peninsula and East Africa. When his fleet first arrived in Malacca, there was already a sizable Chinese community. The General Survey of the Ocean Shores, Yingyu Shenglan, composed by the translator Ma Huan in 1416, gave very detailed accounts of his observations of people's customs and lives in the ports they visited. He referred to the expatriate Chinese as Tang people, Tangren. Zheng He generally sought to attain his goals through diplomacy, and his large army awed most would-be enemies into submission. But a contemporary reported that Zheng He walked like a tiger and did not shrink from violence when he considered it necessary to impress foreign peoples with China's military might. He ruthlessly suppressed pirates who had long plagued Chinese and Southeast Asian waters. For example, he defeated Chen Sui, one of the most feared and respected pirate captains, and returned him to China for execution. He also waged a land war against the kingdom of Khotai and Ceylon, and he made displays of military force when local officials threatened his fleet in Arabia and East Africa. From his fourth voyage, he brought envoys from 30 states who traveled to China and paid their respects at the Ming court. In 1424, the Yongle Emperor died. His successor, the Hongxi Emperor, R. 1424–1425, stopped the voyages during his short reign. Zheng He made one more voyage during the reign of Hongxi's son, the Xuan Emperor, R. 1426–1435, but, after that, the voyages of the Chinese treasure ship fleets were ended. Xuan believed his father's decision to halt the voyages had been meritorious and thus there would be no need to make a detailed description of his grandfather's sending Zheng He to the Western Ocean. The voyages were contrary to the rules stipulated in the Huangming Zerxun, the dynastic foundation documents laid down by the Hongwu Emperor. They further violated long-standing Confucian principles. They were only made possible by, and therefore continued to represent, a triumph of the Ming's eunuch faction over the administration's scholar bureaucrats. Upon Zheng He's death and his faction's fall from power, his successors sought to minimize him in official accounts, along with continuing attempts to destroy all records related to the Jianwen emperor or the manhunt to find him. Although unmentioned in the official dynastic histories, Zheng He probably died during the treasure fleet's last voyage. Although he has a tomb in China, it is empty. He was buried at sea. Zheng He led 7 expeditions to the Western or Indian Ocean. Zheng He brought back to China many trophies and envoys from more than 30 kingdoms, including King Vira Alakashwara of Ceylon, who came to China as a captive to apologize to the emperor for offenses against his mission. Zheng himself wrote of his travels. Sailing charts. Zheng He's sailing charts, the Maokun map, were published in a book entitled the Wubeiji, a treatise on armament technology, written in 1621 and published in 1628 but traced back to Zheng He's and earlier voyages. It was originally a strip map 20.5 centimeters by 560 centimeters that could be rolled up, but was divided into 40 pages which vary in scale from 7 miles/inch in the Nanjing area to 215 miles/inch in parts of the African coast. Less than /ref. Investigation into folios 19 volts to 20 hour of the Maokun map, which covers the Indian Ocean including South India, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, and East Africa, suggests that it is a composite of 4 maps, one for Sri Lanka, one for South India, one for the Maldives, and one for around 400 kilometers of the East African coast, no further south than 6 degrees south of the equator. Each of these maps is positioned at a different orientation to fit with the ocean currents and winds required of a sailing chart, rather than a formal map. The analysis also suggests that Arabic-speaking pilots with a detailed knowledge of the African coast were involved in the cartography. There is little attempt to provide an accurate 2D representation. Instead, the sailing instructions are given using a 24-point compass system with a Chinese symbol for each point, together with the sailing time or distance, which takes account of the local currents and winds. Sometimes depth soundings are also provided. It also shows bays, estuaries, capes and islands, ports and mountains along the coast, important landmarks such as pagodas and temples, and shoal rocks. Of 300 named places outside China, more than 80% can be confidently located. There are also 50 observations of stellar altitude. Size of the ships. Traditional and popular accounts of Zheng He's voyages have described a great fleet of gigantic ships, far larger than any other wooden ships in history. Chinese records state that Zheng He's fleet sailed as far as East Africa. According to medieval Chinese sources, Zheng He commanded 7 expeditions. The 1405 expedition consisted of 27,800 men and a fleet of 62 treasure ships supported by approximately 190 smaller ships. Although many historians disagree about the size of the Zheng He's ships, the fleet included. 6 more expeditions took place, from 1407 to 1433, with fleets of comparable size. If the accounts can be taken as factual, Zheng He's treasure ships were mammoth ships with 9 masts, 4 decks, and were capable of accommodating more than 500 passengers, as well as a massive amount of cargo. Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta both described multi-masted ships carrying 500 to 1,000 passengers in their translated accounts. Nicola da Conti, a contemporary of Zheng He, was also an eyewitness of ships in Southeast Asia, claiming to have seen 5-masted junks weighing about 2,000 tons. There are even some sources that claim some of the treasure ships might have been as long as 600 feet. On the ships were navigators, explorers, sailors, doctors, workers, and soldiers, along with the translator and diarist Gong Zhen. The largest ships in the fleet, the Chinese treasure ships described in Chinese chronicles, would have been several times larger than any other wooden ship ever recorded in history, surpassing Loriyue, 65 meters, 213.3 feet, long, which was built in the late 18th century. The first ships to attain 126 meters, 413.4 feet, long were 19th century steamers with iron hulls. Some scholars argue that it is highly unlikely that Zheng He's ship was 450 feet, 137.2 meters, in length, some estimating that they were 390 to 408 feet, 118.9 to 124.4 meters, long and 160 to 166 feet, 48.8 to 50.6 meters, wide instead, while others put them as small as 200 to 250 feet, 61.0 to 76.2 meters, in length, which would make them smaller than the equine, supply, and troopships in the fleet. One explanation for the seemingly inefficient size of these colossal ships was that the largest 44 Zhang treasure ships were merely used by the emperor and imperial bureaucrats to travel along the Yangtze for court business, including reviewing Zheng He's expedition fleet. The Yangtze River, with its calmer waters, may have been navigable by these treasure ships. Zheng He, a court eunuch, would not have had the privilege and rank to command the largest of these ships, seaworthy or not. The main ships of Zheng He's fleet were instead six-masted 2,000 liao ships. This would give burthen of 500 tons and a displacement tonnage of about 800 tons. Legacy: Imperial China. In the decades after the last voyage, imperial officials minimized the importance of Zheng He and his expeditions throughout the many regnal and dynastic histories they compiled. The information in the Yongle and Xuan emperors' official annals was incomplete and even erroneous. Other official publications omitted them completely. Although some have seen this as a conspiracy seeking to eliminate memories of the voyages, it is likely that the records were dispersed throughout several departments and the expeditions, unauthorized by, and in fact, counter to, the injunctions of the dynastic founder, presented a kind of embarrassment to the dynasty. State-sponsored Ming naval efforts declined dramatically after Zheng's voyages. Starting in the early 15th century, China experienced increasing pressure from the surviving Yuan Mongols from the north. The relocation of the capital north to Beijing exacerbated this threat dramatically. At considerable expense, China launched annual military expeditions from Beijing to weaken the Mongolians. The expenditures necessary for these land campaigns directly competed with the funds necessary to continue naval expeditions. Further, in 1449, Mongolian cavalry ambushed a land expedition personally led by the Zhengtong Emperor at Tun the fortress, less than a day's march from the walls of the capital. The Mongolians wiped out the Chinese army and captured the emperor. This battle had two salient effects. First, it demonstrated the clear threat posed by the northern nomads. Second, the Mongols caused a political crisis in China when they released the emperor after his half-brother had already ascended and declared the new Jingtai era. Not until 1457 and the restoration of the former emperor did political stability return. Upon his return to power, China abandoned the strategy of annual land expeditions and instead embarked upon a massive and expensive expansion of the Great Wall of China. In this environment, funding for naval expeditions simply did not happen. However, missions from Southeast Asia continued to arrive for decades. Depending on local conditions, they could reach such frequency that the court found it necessary to restrict them. The history of Ming records imperial edicts forbidding Java, Champa, and Siam from sending their envoys more often than once every 3 years. Southeast Asia. Veneration of Zheng He. Among the Chinese diaspora in Southeast Asia, Zheng He became a figure of folk veneration. Even some of his crew members who happened to stay in this or the port sometimes did as well, such as Puntakong on Sulu. The temples of this cult, called after either of his names, Chenghun or Sampo, are peculiar to overseas Chinese except for a single temple in Hongjian originally constructed by a returned Filipino Chinese in the Ming Dynasty and rebuilt by another Filipino Chinese after the original was destroyed during the Cultural Revolution. The same village of Hongjian, in Fujian's Jiaomei Township, is also the ancestral home of former Philippine President Corazon Aquino. Malacca. The oldest and most important Chinese temple in Malacca is the 17th-century Chenghun Tang, dedicated to Guanyin. During Dutch colonial rule, the head of the Chenghun Temple was appointed chief over the community's Chinese inhabitants. Following Zheng He's arrival, the Sultan and Sultana of Malacca visited China at the head of over 540 of their subjects, bearing ample tribute. Sultan Mansur Shah, R. 1459–1477, later dispatched Hun Perpeshi Push as his envoy to China, carrying a letter from the Sultan to the Ming Emperor. The letter requested the hand of an imperial daughter in marriage. Malay, but not Chinese, annals record that, in the year 1459, a princess named Hang Lipo or Hang Lu was sent from China to marry the Sultan. The princess came with 500 high-ranking young men and a few hundred handmaidens as her entourage. They eventually settled in Bukit China. It is believed that a significant number of them married into the local populace, creating the descendants now known as the Peranakan. Owing to this supposed lineage, the Peranakan still use special honorifics, Baba for the men and Nyonya for the women. Indonesia. Indonesian Chinese have established temples to Zheng He in Jakarta, Cirebon, Surabaya, and Semarang. In 1961, The Indonesian Islamic leader and scholar Hamka credited Zheng He with an important role in the development of Islam in Indonesia. The Brunei Times credits Zheng He with building Chinese Muslim communities in Palembang and along the shores of Java, the Malay Peninsula, and the Philippines. These Muslims allegedly followed the Hanafi school in the Chinese language. The Malay annals also record a number of Hanafi mosques, in Semarang and Angkau, for instance, were converted directly into temples of the Zheng He cult during the 1460s and 70s. The Sampukong Temple in Semarang was built to commemorate Zheng He's voyage to Java. Modern scholarship in the 1950s, historians such as John Fairbank and Joseph Needham popularized the idea that after Zheng He's voyages China turned away from the seas due to the Hygiene Edict and was isolated from European technological advancements. Modern historians point out that Chinese maritime commerce did not totally stop after Zheng He, that Chinese ships continued to participate in Southeast Asian commerce until the 19th century, and that active Chinese trading with India and East Africa continued long after the time of Zheng. Moreover, revisionist historians such as Jack Goldstone argue that the Zheng He voyages ended for practical reasons that did not reflect the technological level of China. Although the Ming dynasty did ban shipping with the Hygiene Edict, this was a policy of the Hongwu Emperor that long preceded Zheng He, and the ban, so obviously disregarded by the Yongle Emperor, was eventually lifted entirely. However, the ban on maritime shipping did force countless numbers of people into smuggling and piracy. Neglect of the Imperial Navy and Nanjing dockyards after Zheng He's voyages left the coast highly vulnerable to Japanese wokou during the 16th century. Richard von Glan, a UCLA professor of Chinese history, commented that most treatments of Zheng He present him wrongly. They offer counterfactual arguments and emphasize China's missed opportunity, focusing on failures instead of accomplishments. In contrast, Glan asserts that Zheng He reshaped Asia because maritime history in the 15th century was essentially the Zheng He story and the effects of his voyages. Cultural influence. Despite the official neglect, the adventures of the fleet captured the imagination of some Chinese, and novelizations of the voyages occurred, such as The Romance of the Three-Jeweled Eunuch in 1597. On his travels, Zheng He built mosques while also spreading the worship of Mazu. He apparently never found time for a pilgrimage to Mecca but did send sailors there on his last voyage. He played an important part in developing relations between China and Islamic countries. Zheng He also visited Muslim shrines of Islamic holy men in the Fujian. In modern times, interest in Zheng He revived substantially. The United States Navy ship USS Chengho, 952, was named for Zheng He. In Vernor Vinge's 1999 science fiction novel A Deepness in the Sky, an interstellar society of commercial traders in human space are named the Chengho after the admiral. The expeditions featured prominently in Heather Terrell's 2005 novel The Map Thief. For the 600th anniversary of Zheng He's voyages in 2005, the China's CCTV produced a special television series Zheng He Xiaoxiang, starring Galen Lo as Zheng He. He is also mentioned in part of the main storyline of the first-person shooter game Far Cry 3. Relics. Zheng He built the Tianfei Palace, Tianfeigong, Palace of the Celestial Wife, a temple in honor of the goddess Mazu, in Nanjing after the fleet returned from its first western voyage in 1407. The Deed of Foreign Connection and Exchange, or Tongfan Deed Stele, is located in the Tianfei Palace in Liuhe, Taikang, whence the expeditions first departed. The stele was submerged and lost, but has been rebuilt. In order to thank the Celestial Wife for her blessings, Zheng He and his colleagues rebuilt the Tianfei Palace in Nanshan, Shangle County, in Fujian Province as well prior to departing on their last voyage. At the renovated temple, they raised a stele entitled The Record of Tianfei, showing her presence and power, Tianfei Lingying Shiji, discussing their earlier voyages. The Gal trilingual inscription in Sri Lanka was discovered in the city of Gal in 1911 and is preserved at the National Museum of Colombo. The three languages used in the inscription were Chinese, Tamil, and Persian. The inscription praises Buddha and describes the fleet's donations to the famous Danavarina Yanar temple of Tun Swarm, frequented by both Hindus and Buddhists. Zheng He's tomb in Nanjing has been repaired and a small museum built next to it, although his body was buried at sea off the Malabar coast near Calicut in western India. However, his sword and other personal possessions were interred in a Muslim tomb inscribed in Arabic. The tomb of Zheng He's assistant Hong Bao was recently unearthed in Nanjing, as well. Commemoration. In the People's Republic of China, 11th of July is Maritime Day, Jingguo Hanghai Ri, and is devoted to the memory of Zheng He's first voyage. Initially, Kunming Chongshui International Airport was to be named Zheng He International Airport. In 2015, Emotion Media Factory dedicated a special multimedia show Zheng He is Coming for Amusement Park Ramen U Park, Ningba, China. The show became a finalist of the amusement industry prestigious Brass Rings Awards by IAPA. Gallery Brass Rings Awards by IAPA. Gallery Brass Rings Awards by IAPA. Gallery Brass Rings Awards by IAPA. Gallery